everyone, and welcome to week 3 of celebrating back to school with the Karen Beasley Sea Turtle Rescue and Rehabilitation Center. We're so happy that you're back for another week. My name is Mary, and I'm the Education Associate. Each week this month, we'll be covering a new topic followed by a live stream on our Facebook page every Tuesday morning. So far, we've covered Kemp's, Ridleys, and Loggerheads, and this week we'll be covering the green sea turtle. Don't forget to tune in each week to see what we're covering next. First, let's start by introducing the green sea turtle species. One thing that makes them unique compared to the other sea turtle species is that greens are the only species to have a full herbivore diet. They're also our second biggest sea turtle species, typically weighing anywhere from 250 to 400 pounds. We don't know their exact lifespan, but it's predicted to be around 70 years or more. They can be found worldwide in tropical and warmer temperate waters. And lastly, as juveniles, they'll eat a lot of fish and jellyfish, but as they get into adulthood, they do transition to seagrasses and algae. And a really fun fact about these guys is they don't get their name green sea turtle from looking green on the outside. They actually get it from what they eat. So a lot of the pigment from those seagrasses and algae actually turns the fat in their body greens as well. So that is why they're called green sea turtles. Our greens, just like all other sea turtle species, face a lot of threats in their natural environment. Becoming bycatch in fishing gear is something that is very dangerous for this species. You can see here, pictured to the left is horsetail. So horsetail was admitted to our hospital on April 24th due to a hook, and these fishing-related injuries is something that we see really often in our hospital, and it's something that our greens face a lot in their natural environment. Next is changing environmental conditions. So this is very harmful for migrating turtles and causes a lot of trouble for them in the colder months. We also see a lot of boat strike sea turtles. So you can see here, pictured to the right is sandspur. Sandspur was a turtle that came to us, and you can see they have pretty big injuries on their carapace from that boat strike. And sadly, this turtle did pass away on July 26, 2025. This is something that is kind of common for our boat strike turtles. A lot of the times, these injuries are very severe, so it's kind of hard for them to rehab that kind of injury. But we do see some that do get to recover and get released back to the ocean. But it is a case by case kind of injury. We also have diseases, which is something that they have to deal with a lot too. So greens face a disease known as FP, and this causes them to grow tumors all over their body, but luckily we do not see a lot of the cases of this here at our hospital, but it is something that greens out in the wild are dealing with. And our last one will be loss of nesting habitats. So we don't see too many greens nesting on our island, but it definitely is a possibility. So especially later in the season, we'll see a few greens that nest on our island. It's not as much as we see our loggerheads nesting here on topsail, but it's definitely something that happens, and we do get a few turtles almost pretty much every year that are coming that are greens. Taking a look into what we've seen so far in 2025, we've had a total of 33 greens who have been admitted to our hospital. You will see to the right a chart showing the breakdown of admissions of green sea turtles in 2025. Out of those 33 greens we've seen, 3% have come in due to a hook, 15.2% due to a boat strike, 36.4% for DTS or debilitated turtle syndrome, which we talked a lot about in our last video, and 45.5% due to cold stunning, which we will discuss a lot more throughout this video. This year, we've seen more greens than any other species, and cold stunning is our number one reason that a green has been admitted to our hospital. Once the temperature drops at the end of the year, we will most likely see more cold stuns come to our facility, but these are just our numbers so far in September. You can see to the left we have elderberry, who is pictured. Elderberry is a turtle that came in due to cold stunning. They arrived on January 13th, 2025, and then were be able to release on February 24th, 2025. Cold stunning is a term you may have never heard of before, so let me explain what it is and how it affects our sea turtles. Let's first start off with a little bit of biology. So sea turtles are reptiles, and all reptiles are cold-blooded. Being cold-blooded just means they need some type of external source to keep them warm. So you probably have seen crocodiles or other types of turtles basking out in the sunlight. This is to keep them warm because they can't just regulate their body temperature on their own. So humans, we can kind of adapt to different temperatures. We don't need an external source of heat to keep us warm throughout our lives. But reptiles don't have this, so they do rely on the temperature around them. For sea turtles, they rely on the ocean temperature, and that's how they keep warm. So they cannot regulate their own body temperature, and this is why cold stunning is a big thing for them. So, cold stunning does begin if a temperature drops below 50 degrees Fahrenheit in the water. And when this happens, it kind of just puts their body into shock. So, their body functions begin to stop, their circulation decreases, they become lethargic and really slow, and they just stop eating. So, they lose a lot of weight, they're not able to protect themselves out in the water. A lot of the time, it just makes them unable to swim. And this is when they strand to shore, and we know that we need to protect them. So, we get a lot of calls on these cold stuns that they're floating in the water or they washed ashore. And this is the first step at getting them back to our hospital. So you can see here to the picture to the left, this is Buttercup. They were our first turtle of the year. They were brought to us on January 1st, 2025. And you can see outside, we're just doing our admission process and bringing in our first cold stun of the year. So pictured here are different cold stuns that have come to us throughout the 2025 season. So you can see all these turtles are all in kind of different conditions. Some things that we kind of notice when looking at them is that a lot of them do have numbers that get written onto their carapace. We get a lot of turtles from Cape Cod or the Outer Banks where they get lots of these cold stun turtles at a given time. So sometimes they do write little numbers on them just so we can figure out who is who. When they get into our hospital, we make sure to give them the name so we can figure out who is who. But this is kind of other places that kind of write these numbers on them. So you do see this a lot when you're working with sea turtles, especially when they're getting sea turtles in very high volumes. So next, to teach you more about our cold stun sea turtles, we're going to take you through our treatment process that we use to get these guys back to a normal health. So we're going to take you step by step through each part of this process and tell you why these parts are so important to getting them healthy again. So, first is getting them back to a normal body temperature. This is always the first thing we want to do when these guys come in. We don't want them to further decline in health by being cold, so it's essential that we try to improve their temperature right away. And we do have a temperature controlled room that really helps in this process. So, in this room, we're able to adjust the temperature however we see fit. So, it doesn't adjust the temperature for the whole hospital. So, this room is really cool that in just that room, we can just slowly try to improve that temperature and get these guys back to a normal body temperature for sea turtles. So, this is kind of like hypothermia where we don't want to shock them into being warm really quickly. So, we only increase their temperature by 7 degrees per day. And this kind of ensures that they're gradually increasing in temperature and they're gradually getting back to a more normal state. And we found that this helps the best when dealing with these cold stuns. So, our second step to our recovery process for cold stuns is giving the turtles fluids if needed. So, a lot of the time with our cold stuns, when they come in so unhealthy and they're out in the ocean for so long, not fending for themselves, they do come in pretty dehydrated and they just need a little bit of help to get them back to normal levels. So, we don't do this the whole time that they're here. It's only when they first come in and they first really need it. But giving these guys fluids is a really important part to this process and giving them a good start on that recovery. So here we have Farbuti. So Farbuti arrived at our hospital on December 12th, 2024, so at the very end of that cold stun season. So they weren't officially a 2025 turtle, but they did stay here until 2025. So they were released on February 24th, 2025. So they were still receiving treatment this year, but they weren't officially a 2025 turtle. But you can see them pictured here receiving those fluids, just giving them a little bit of a head start and helping them along that recovery process. So, step 3 is going to be getting the turtle to eat again. So, when their bodies are shut down to the cold, they stop eating. So, they lose a lot of weight when they're out in the wild, when they're cold stunned. So, when we get them back here and their body temperature is normal again, we really focus on getting them to eat. So, we do replicate their natural diet by providing them with lettuce, bell peppers, cucumbers. As I mentioned, they are the herbivores of the sea. So we want to get that part of their diet accounted for when they're in our hospital. And occasionally we do get seaweed donated. So we try to give that to our turtles if we have it here with us. We also give them different types of fish and sometimes squid or shrimp, just whatever kind of food they'll eat at first, just to get their body weight up. That's really important, is getting them back to that normal temperature. So getting them to eat again is a really good sign that their bodies are starting to recover. When you're sick, a lot of the time you don't want to eat, and that's what we see with these turtles as well. But when we see them consistently eating, we know that they're starting to feel better and they're on the right track for recovery. Step 4, when these guys are in a little bit more of a stable position, we really focus on regaining their strength. So obviously they've been out of the ocean for a little bit, they haven't been swimming like they used to, so we want to start to build up that strength. So we do have a therapy pool in our facility, and this therapy pool mimics natural currents. So you can kind of see in this video here the water moving and everything. We have a lot of pipes in that tank that push water around to kind of just simulate those waves, give them something to swim against, and this is really important when it comes to recovery. So now that we've talked about the different steps these turtles take in their recovery process, here's a little look behind the scenes as what our facility looks like in our cold sun season. So by far, cold sun season is our busiest time of year. We do get a lot of turtles during this time of year, especially compared to other times. So we definitely have to make best use of the space we have and sometimes create more space for these guys. So you will see in both these pictures, we have what are known as our dump and fill tanks. So these are used when, some of our other tanks just run out of space, and this gives us just the ability to take care of more turtles at once. So these dump and fill tanks do require a lot of work. We do have to change the water out of them 3 times a day. So that means we take a pump. Obviously, we remove the turtle, pump out that water, refill it with new water, make sure that tank is all clean, and we put them back in. So doing that 3 times a day, especially when we have this amount of turtles that you're seeing in these pictures, it is a lengthy process, but we have a great group of volunteers that are so willing to give their time and help these turtles out. So this is what our facility looks like in the wintertime. Very busy, a lot of work is being done. One year in 2019, we had up to 109 cold stuns one winter. So you can imagine that is a lot of turtles to take care of at one time. But, we do want to take care of these guys. We do want to get as many of them out in the ocean as possible. So this is just a necessary step that we have to take just to make sure we're getting as many greens and other species back to their home and, back to the environment that they're supposed to be in. To look into the future of our cold sun seasons, here's the new renovation we just did on our sick bay. So before we had those dump and fill tanks covering the whole room, but recently we actually just installed 3 raceways into this room with their own filtration system, which is really going to help us during that season when we just get a lot of turtles all at once. So these tanks can be divided up into 8 different sections, allowing us to house more turtles at once. So having this filtered water is really important for the health of these guys. Those 3 water changes a day is pretty difficult, not just for our volunteers to have to do them, but also just we don't want to handle these turtles if not necessary. So having them have filtered water and a safe place to recover is really going to aid in our cold sun season, is getting these guys, as many of them, out as we can. So with all our turtles, our end goal is always going to be to release. But for our cold stuns, it's a little bit different because a lot of these guys end up recovering when the water is still cold. So we have to kind of treat their releases a little bit differently than, in our summer months. So on January 9th, 2025, we had one of our winter releases. 39 sea turtles were able to be released that day. So those were some from our 2025 season as well as our 2024 season. So, due to temperatures being too cold for an onshore release in these months, we do need to transport them to get these turtles to warmer waters where they'll be able to better deal with those water temperatures. So, we do coordinate with groups like UNC Wilmington, CMAS, and the Coast Guard to arrange boat transfers for these guys. So you can see in these pictures, getting 39 turtles ready to be all released at the same time was definitely a journey. But we did put them in these little banana boxes. We made sure to put little self heaters in there as well. So while they were being transported to these places, they didn't get too cold. The last thing we want for some of these cold sun sea turtles is to be cold again. So we definitely try to prevent that as best we can. And then you can see down here, this is us all taking those turtles onto the van where they'll be transported to, places where they have their boats. So, we just want to make sure they're staying warm for this journey. We make sure the temperature in the van is also warm as well, just trying to prepare them best for the ocean and until they get there as well. You can see in this other picture is just a little turtle poking his head out of that banana box. So, we made sure to package them up all safe to make sure they were all set to go back to the ocean. So this is what those offshore releases would look like. So this release happened on December 4th, 2024. So almost to the new year, but not quite yet. But you can see here we have some of our volunteers and staff letting these guys go off the ends of boats. So again, we do have to take boats to take these guys out here. When they're in the Gulf Stream, it's a lot warmer water temperatures for them, and they just have better rates of survival if we take them out there. So we do let them out, and we had a photographer come and take some pictures of them while they were out in the ocean. But this is something a little different we do in our winter months, but it's all a part of that recovery process and, fulfilling our mission of getting as many of these guys released as we can. So, as well as those offshore releases, we've also had more of those normal releases that we're all used to seeing. And again, our release is our end part of our mission. We want to get as many of these guys back to the ocean as possible. So, days like this are so great to see as many turtles as we can get released back to the ocean. So, in 2025, out of those 33 green sea turtles that have come to us, we've been able to release 24 of them, which is great that we've been able to get that many greens back to our oceans. So pictured here to the left, we have Mimosa. This turtle stranded on March 19th and was released on August 7th, so we were so happy to see that turtle go back to the ocean, as well as Zinnia that stranded April 5th and was able to be released on August 7th. So again, this is such an important day, full of joy and just happiness that these guys are able to get back to the ocean. So now that we talked about, what threatens these turtles and kind of what we do here at our hospital, these are some ways that we can all help our green sea turtles, just so we can prevent injury or what to do if we see a sea turtle that is injured. So first, it's just following boating speed limits. So if you remember the pictures from earlier in the video, we just want to do our best to try to prevent any sea turtles from getting injured by boats. So going the speed limit for boating and just being aware of your surroundings is the best way to help these guys. Respecting nesting areas and nesting turtles. So, as I mentioned, we don't see too many greens here, but later in the season, we do start to see a little bit of greens start to come to Topsail Island. So, just being respectful of them, not bothering them, not trying to interrupt the nesting process that they're going through is best practice to keeping these guys safe. Properly discarding a fishing line. So, while we're fishing, making sure that everything you use gets brought back with you so that no turtle accidentally swallows a hook or, just messes with any of your line that you leave out in the ocean. And then reducing marine debris. This kind of ties in with, that fishing line, just making sure that we're not leaving too much of an impact on them. They can get entangled in anything we leave out in our ocean. So just being pretty mindful of that. And then lastly, just reporting any stranding or sick sea turtles you see. This is especially important during those cold stun seasons. So we know a turtle is cold stunned mostly because people report them to us. That's how we get a majority of these turtles into us. So if you ever do see a sea turtle that you think is injured or cold stunned or just has anything that might be wrong with them, you can always call our number at 910-329-0222 and follow the prompt to get you to our hotline. Or you can also call the North Carolina Stranding Hotline at 252 241 7367. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video and learn more about our green sea turtles. Especially moving into our cold sun season, it's so important that we educate people on what's going on in these guys and just let people know to be on the lookout if they see any sea turtles that ended up stranding due to cold sunning or just need our help in any way. So we appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day just to watch this, and we look forward to doing these videos each week. Next week we'll have another video out, but don't forget to check out our live stream on Tuesdays and just learn more about some of the current patients we have at our hospital.